Hello, this is student feedback. The assignment this week was to take a quote and put it in a paragraph. So let's start. Some citizen journalists are not reliable as they use second-hand information and have a more sinister than what? Political or commercial point to prove. Okay, well then that's full stop, isn't it? Passive processes of unchecked second-hand material, much of it contrived by PR to serve some political or commercial interest, not journalists but journalists. Okay, so this quote is essentially stuck in there. It's not referenced, it's not headed by the author, it doesn't really fit in. But also, knowing Nick Davies's work a little bit, it's not really just about citizen journalists, it's about journalists more generally. The idea is that the workload given to journalists means that increasingly they top and tail PR. They change the header, they change the conclusion a little bit, but essentially they use public relations material and therefore replicate existing political or commercial interests. So the citizen journalist thing here doesn't fit. If you put an influential critique of contemporary journalism is that much of journalistic production has become reliant on second-hand information provided by public relations groups for now, with political or commercial just motivations. Has become reliant on second information provided by public relations professionals, PR people, with ulterior political or commercial motives. Okay, that's slightly better. We had sinister. We're not quite sure whether it's sinister or not. That implies some sort of evil conspiracy that we can't really justify. So, an influential critique of contemporary journalism is that much of journalistic production has become reliant on second-hand information provided by public relations professionals with ulterior political or commercial motives, by corporate or political public relation professionals with ulterior political or commercial motives. Okay. For Davies, this means that journalists, right, according to, it's not this means, according to Davies, many journalists have become passive processors of unchecked second-hand material, much of it contrived by PR to serve some political or commercial interest. Not journalists, but journalists. Okay, now we have to put the in-text quote. Let's say it's page 100. That's how you do an in-text quote. An in-text reference. Surname, comma, year, colon, page. That's where it should be. Anything there goes at the end. One problem with this is we've got political or commercial motives. Seeing as we say it later on, we can put that. Now, maybe it's not that they've got ulterior motives, maybe it's direct motives. So, let's try that. With motives at odds with journalistic objectivity and other journalistic norms. According to Davies, many journalists have become passive processors, not journalists, but churnalists. Not this quote is suggesting, this is just too self-conscious. And we're back on again to citizen journalists. I think this is just a bit confused. The point that Davies is making is about journalists, not citizen journalists. Now, it may be that because citizen journalists use mainstream journalism, that has implications for them. But they play a slightly different role. They're often commentators. Okay. And then we've got here, which just really compounds it. For example, The Sun will hear a story from the Daily Mail and use it, but make it their own by being more articulate and intriguing. Usually the Daily Mail is slightly more lengthier stories, so it's often more articulate and intriguing compared to the article already written from The Sun. Let's just fix the capitalisation here, just for the sake of it. The Sun, the Daily Mail, from The Sun. Let's just make this English to start with. This quote suggests, forget the meaning, that journalists are likely to be unreliable and are uninformed. So they get information from secondary sources, for example, the full stop. For example, the Sun will hear a story from the Daily Mail and use it, but make it their own by being more articulate and intriguing. By rewriting it to be more articulate and more intriguing. Right, this shows we've got a new subject to the sentence, this, so therefore capital letter new sentence. This shows that the information is untrustworthy. Does it? Okay. In some cases, journalists, not journalists, create articles for the purpose of a political or commercial purpose. Well, they might do, but really, we think that's relatively rare. With the argument by Davies is that unwittingly, without knowing it, without realising it, they're showing somebody else's purpose. They're being used as patsies to present someone else's interests. And so let's try this. For Davies, journalists, due to pressure of workload, due to a high workload, an increasing workload, have become insufficiently critical of their sources. Okay. When one paper one newspaper repeats the story found in another, they may not realise that they are merely spreading the original PR message. We can just do that. We don't need all that complication about intriguing and so we've got this insufficiently critical of their sources. Okay, so for Davies journalists, due to an increasing workload, have become insufficiently critical of their sources, and so often become unwitting messengers for the PR companies. This problem is compounded when one newspaper repeats a story found in another without realizing what the original source was, and that they're merely spreading the original PR message. Okay, so this has become your point only by this. An influential critique. So you're explaining one of the influential critiques of journalistic production, that it has become over-reliant on other information. Okay, so that's fine. Now at the end we've got our references. It's not really much of your point, but hey ho. References at the end would be Davies, surname, N for Nick, the year, and then the rest is fine. Thank you.